So today we are going to continue with the Suggestopedia, and we will complete Suggestopedia. We would do some activities related to the method. Okay. So we have observed a class, an ongoing class that was taking place in Egypt, where the mother tongue of the people was Arabic, and we got to know about the mother tongue because mother tongue has a role in Suggestopedia. Okay, people are allowed to use their mother tongue in the classroom. The teacher and the students mutually they use the mother tongue. And in the class that we experienced through Larson, we noticed that they were the speakers of Arabic, and it was just not in the speech that they were allowed to use the mother tongue. The reading material that was provided to them was translated to their mother tongue. Okay, so we noticed that the dialogues or the handout of the dialogues that was provided by the teacher had two columns. One was in English and the other was in Arabic. So whenever the teacher was reading something, they could always fall back on their mother tongue to seek help in order to understand what the teacher was reading about. Okay, so we also came to know that anything that is being done in Suggestopedia aims at making the students comfortable, and the basic goal is to remove the psychological barriers that the learners bring with them to the classrooms. And the psychological barrier is basically related to the fear of failure of learning, right? So we observed the class, we derived the principles, we discussed the principles. Today we are going to talk about the roles of the teacher, the students, and the instruction material, and few of the activities you would see what are the terms that are used for those activities basically. Whatever we would be doing today, this has already been a part of the class that we observed. Okay, so that wouldn't be difficult for you all to understand. Let me share the slide. Okay, all right, so we're done with these activities. I guess we are done with this theoretical perspective. We are done with the activities also, question answers. These are just few that are named in the slide. Otherwise, there are other activities that we actually witness being carried out in the classrooms, right? But right now we are going to the design and look at the basic objective. Now, what is of course, the basic objective or the goal of any teaching method for teaching of second language is to make the students proficient in the language. Okay, but Suggestopedia comes with a goal that it comes with a goal to desuggest the psychological barriers in learning. Okay, so with the objective of accelerating the learning process of the students, right? So here the objective is to accelerate the learning of the second language of the students by desuggesting the psychological barriers. So basically it works with two objectives. One is to accelerate, enhance their learning capability, and second is to obtain the objective. What do they do is to desuggest the psychological barriers. Okay, and then this comes also as an objective to the focus is on the vocabulary, the words, right? We already came to know about this, that a prodigious list of words the students need to learn, but in a very relaxed environment. Okay, so the class that we visited was a little they were giving less hours, but that really depends. This is the recommended time basically by for the whole month, and then there it is divided into 10 units of the study, and the students would learn 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. So this is quite, engaging, and in a way it's hectic also, because they would be learning the second language for 4 hours. Okay, but since this is a stress-free method, so it would not be a trouble for them, because much of the time we saw teacher doing things for them, and they are sitting in a relaxed environment. They are not given any homework also, and this much time is of course required, because the teaching process is very slow. Okay, because of the things that are to be taken care of. Nothing can be forced on the students. They have to be kept relaxed. So the activities, procedures take longer time as well. Okay. Other than that, we are done with these learning activities. We are going to do them again. We would like to talk about it. Okay. Now let's come to the role of the teacher. As in the theoretical perspective, you have already seen that the teacher has an authoritative role. Okay, the teacher is authority in the classroom, but this kind of authority, I have already told you, is different from the words that we take. Yeah, Sakiba, they take a class of 4 hours, but of course, they are doing different things, and it's the teacher. This is the recommended time. Otherwise, the class that we visited wasn't that long. Okay, and it was not happening for this number of days. The suggested one is that they should meet every day and they should learn every day, but the actual class wasn't happening that way. Okay, so as far as the role is concerned, while we were doing the theoretical perspective and talking about the theory of learning, we said that the authority is very important, and this authority in Suggestopedia lies with the teacher. Okay, and this authority is different from the usual meaning of the use of authority. So it's about showing your absolute confidence in the teacher. Okay, and because Lozanov believes that when we feel that someone has authority over the subject, it is easy to believe them, it is easy to follow them, and it gives the students the confidence to trust the teacher. And the trust factor is very important in Suggestopedia. Okay, because the students need to trust the teacher in order to practice infantilization. Okay, so they should trust the teacher as a parent. They should accept her authority. They should have faith that the teacher knows all, and they should be determined that the teacher would teach them and they would learn. Okay, and the more of the responsibility in the teaching learning process in Suggestopedia lies with the teacher. As we have already seen in the class, that the teacher keeps on saying that you would learn it automatically, and she's the one who's doing more things in the class, right? So with authority comes a responsibility also, right? So she's the one who is organizing the lessons. She's the one who selects the music, who selects the dialogues also, and she keeps the class energetic, enthusiastic, through making the environment which is the requirement of Suggestopedia. Okay, so coming to the role of the student, right? Now the student, they practice infantilization, they act as children, right? And they also go into pseudo passiveness state. They're required to, they close their eyes, and they are made imaginative. They pay attention to what they are listening. They try to be receptive. So their role stays as passive as far as the interaction with the teacher is concerned, but then in the classes later on they are actively participating. Okay, their roles become active. They talk to one another, they talk to the teacher, they participate actively in the classroom activities, they move around when there's you know the teacher says that they are in a party. They introduce each other. Okay, and they greet each other, they introduce themselves and get the introduction from the other students also. So their role becomes active, but um, they do not have any role in selecting the reading material, and they don't have any role to um, figure out about the teaching that is going on, right? They are passive as far as the selection of the reading material, creation of the activities is concerned. They are not even given homework, right? In that way their role is passive. Otherwise, after the beginning classes, we see that once they know and they start using the language, right, then they become very active. And we also know that they are given ample time. They're not asked to speak until they are ready to. They do not produce the language until they feel that they are ready to. Okay. So other than that, now this is the only method, I would say, where the feelings of the students are taken care of and they are dealt with. Okay. Otherwise, this aspect of language learning is blank in the rest of the methods. So this is the only methods where a great deal of attention is given to students' feeling, right? As I told you that they are given liberty, they are given freedom. They are not forced to produce the language until they are ready to, right? So this happens to be the one of the fundamental principles of this method, that if students are relaxed and confident, they will not need to try very hard to learn the language. Okay, so it would just come naturally and easily to them. The psychological barriers are reduced for the students, which is not happening in the rest of the methods. Okay, they keep on getting positive suggestions, they're given confidence, they're given their self-esteem is taken care of. So they are given a lot of options. For instance, when they are given the foreign names, they are given options to select their foreign names. They are given options to select their professions. Okay, initially they just try to understand and communicate with very little responses like yes and no, and later on they're not even asked, but whosoever is ready starts speaking in the rest of the activities. So the feelings are seriously taken care of, and they are tried to be uh, to make them feel more secure. Just a while, okay? Just wait a minute. Okay. When we talk about what areas of language are emphasized or what skills are emphasized, we find out that vocabulary is emphasized. Okay. Lozanov believes that when people or when the learners know the words, only then they would be able to practice the language. Okay. So vocabulary is very important. Structures would come along. He believes that structures would come along. Words, learning words and their meaning is important, and even translation is available for them. Okay, so grammar has a role, and it is dealt explicitly but minimally. so much minimally that we do not even notice it at times that grammar is being taught. Okay, so of course no language is taught without its grammar, but in this method it is, you know, dealt very very minimally, and it is not even observed in the class that we experience. So in this method, it is believed that students will learn best if their conscious attention is focused not on language forms, but on using the language, right? So forms are not taught to them. By forms, we mean the grammar part. So speaking communicatively is emphasized. We saw that all the activities were related to communication. Um, Students sometimes, you know, they read um, the target language, and sometimes, you know, they might be asked to write that down as a composition, right? The As far as the role of the mother tongue or the native language is concerned, they are allowed to translate. Teacher explains them the meaning of the words through translation. The teacher uses their mother tongue in the classroom whenever necessary, and but with the passage of time, Lozanoff also suggests, and this method, Suggestopedia also suggests that the use of mother tongue should be reduced. Since the class that we experienced was beginners level class, so all the time we saw that the mother tongue is being used, but later on, you know, the use would be reduced as the student would become more proficient in the target language. Now, okay, go to your chat and tell me did you see any evaluation taking place? And what became of the errors? Okay, did you see any evaluation? Did you see any evaluation taking place? Quickly, it's just the answer right and no, it's just being alert. Or, yes, Nazia is right, or अरे यार माजे म्यूजिक कहाँ से आ गया? Evaluation means testing, examination. कोई आपने देखा जिस पे you know they were evaluated whether they are learning or not? This is my question. Just answer in yes and no quickly. Yes, the answer is no, and for the obvious reason. Evaluation in any form, it can be stressful. Okay, even if you are very well prepared for your exams, still you're tensed, right? So when a method, what are hate games? Sakiba, what are hate games? Okay. Faryal, I am not asking about, you know, the activities. We are going to discuss the activities later on. See, keep the questions very, very simple and take care of these while you are taking your exams. Whatever has been asked, just answer this. I'm asking, were they evaluated? Were they in any case tested? Whether they are learning? The answer is simply no, without even thinking, because, you know, evaluation in any form can result in a stressful situation, right? So when the only aim and everything works towards reducing the anxiety of the students, which is taken to be a barrier in second language learning or for learning anything. So there is no question of teacher evaluating the students, right? So they cannot be any chance of the formal test which would be threatening for the relaxed atmosphere of the class, which is the basic thing in Suggestopedia. Okay. Now, as far as the errors are concerned, yesterday we discussed that the errors are not corrected instantly. At the moment the errors are committed, they are not corrected. Okay, the students are not snubbed, the students are not stopped, right? So there is no error correction immediately, because as long as the meaning are being communicated, forms are not important in this method, right? So the errors are not corrected immediately, but of course later on in some other ways, right? And the teacher does not give the corrections directly. She might use it by herself. Okay, she might repeat the corrected form by herself, but not at that time. Later on, at some time, when she knows that the students are listening and they would be able to correct those errors, right? Now, as far as this student-teacher interaction is concerned, the interaction is always initiated by the teacher. Okay, since she is the authority, so she begins the interaction and she interacts with the whole class. Okay, and then she later on she will interact with individuals also in activities, like when a party is going on, she's moving from group to group. She's talking to them, she's giving them ideas, she's interacting with individual students as well. And the students, they initially respond non-verbally only, okay, or few short forms that they can use in the language. And later on, these students, when they become more confident and they get control over the target language, they can respond more appropriately, and then they can even start interaction, right? So we found that there was more student to student interaction because the activities were designed as such, and a teacher's interaction with the students was of course there. But with the passage of time, as the students start getting control over the target language, they are able to use the language. So the move of responding moves from teacher to student to student to students more. Okay, so this is how all of this takes place, right? Other than that, we have done role of the teacher, role of the material. Now there is a lot of material, and this material is of two kinds that is used in Suggestopedia. One is the direct material. Okay, now the direct material is the text basically, and we know that this text consisted of a handout, and in that handout there were dialogues, and those dialogues were in two languages, both the mother tongue. The class that we experienced was Arabic, and the target language was English, right? So the direct material is the handout that is provided by the teacher, and then there can be recordings also that can be played, but much of the material in Suggestopedia is indirect, which is used for peripheral learning, because peripheral learning is more, right? So there are decorations that enhances learning. There are music, and there might be other reference books also. Learning environment basically provides this indirect peripheral material for learning. Okay. Procedure we already know. Okay. Before we conclude this method, I would like to go to some of the activities, what they are actually called. There are 10 activities that are already, that are given in your book also. So that would enhance the learning, or that would accelerate the learning. Okay. So these are called as techniques and the classroom setups. Now the first technique is the setup of the classroom, and all of this also is a part of teaching and learning. Okay. The classroom, you are already told that there would be different setup with dim lights, soft music, armchairs, wall decorations. There would be scenes from the country of the target language, all these. Okay. Next is peripheral learning, that consists of posters that has grammatical information, and these are on the classroom walls. So this is another technique of this method. Then positive suggestions, for instance, the teacher keeps on telling them that they are going to learn it easily, they are going to learn it without making any effort. So this is another technique. Okay. So, and then she keeps on de-suggesting their fears, and she keeps on giving them positive suggestions. And here there's a role of music also. Okay. In positive suggestion, there is a role of music, and yesterday we talked about that there are 4 roles of music in Suggestopedia, right? Then we talked about visualization. Okay. When they are sent into imagination, they imagine themselves as going to the United States, and they board the plane, and what is happening, and the teacher keeps on telling them their eyes are closed. So this is visualization. This is another technique for learning of second language, right? Then choosing a new identity is another technique. Okay, they're given new names in English, and they're given new occupations, and I have told you what's the importance of new identity. Okay, why are they given new identities? Quickly, we have repeated it many times, but I would like you to put it in the chat. Why new identities? Why new identities? To make relaxed environment. लेकिन क्यों? How would it remove some barriers? Of course, everything moves towards removing the barriers to make them more confident to do mistakes. That's good. Anila is close. Okay. And Nazia, your answer is general. Anila's answer is specific, that I was looking for. Okay. They will be confident, and they would feel that someone else is making the mistakes, right? That's good. Okay. Other than that, there is another technique of role play. Okay. Students are asked to, they pretend temporarily that they are someone else, and they perform the target language, and they think themselves to belong to a certain profession. So in this role play, they were also asked to be at a party. Okay. Now there are 2 other techniques which are named as concerts. First concert and the second concert. Okay. Okay. All right. Sakiba is right. Yes, Mazev is also right. Okay. Role play that we saw at the party, and then there are 2 other techniques that are called as the first concert. Now these are receptive techniques. Okay. Why? Because they are not producing the language. Remember, the first time the teacher starts reading the dialogues, she tells the students to close their eyes, and she's the one who's reading with the music. The students are not doing anything. Okay. So these are called as receptive techniques, and this is called as the receptive phase of the lesson. So after the teacher has introduced the story as related in the dialogues, and has called the students' attention to some particular maybe grammatical points, he reads the dialogues in target language. Okay. The students, they may read the dialogues also with the translation. Who's this? Okay, they have the translated copies with them, so they may read the dialogues as the teacher is reading, and they may look at their mother tongue translations also. So the music is played, and after a few minutes, the teacher begin on a slow dramatic reading, and she synchronizes her intonation with the music. And this is the first concert. And in the second phase, second concert, which is the technique is called as the second concert, the students are asked to put their script aside. They simply close their eyes and listen to the teacher reads the dialogues at a normal rate, and the teacher, this time the content governs the way the teacher is reading the script. Okay, so then the teacher does not synchronizes with the music, and this is how the second concert takes place. But both of these concerts are the receptive kind of a technique where the students are only listening and they are not producing the language. Now, when the students start producing the language, those techniques and activities are called as the primary activation and the secondary activation. Okay, so in the primary activation technique, the student playfully reread the target language dialogues aloud as individuals or as in the groups. And when we observe the lesson that was taking place in Egypt, there were 3 groups of students. They read parts of the dialogues in a particular manner, like the first group does it sadly, the other group angrily, the third group happily. So this is the active phase. Okay, the 2 concerts are the passive phase or the receiving phases or the receptive phases, when the students are only receiving the language. Now, when it is time to produce the language, this is called as the active phase. Okay, one is the primary activation, where the students read the dialogues with different intonation patterns and taking them as differently. Some utter them sadly, some utter them happily, some utter them angrily. Okay. Now, in the second activation, the students engage in various activities that are designed to help them learn the new material. In this phase, they sing, they dance, there is dramatization, and there are games, right? The interesting part is that these are varied activities. Okay, and they don't allow the students to focus on the form of linguistic message, but the communicative intent. We saw them communicating with one another. We seldom or we did not observe at all attention towards the form of the language. Okay, so if we conclude this method, we can say that this method thinks that learning is facilitated with an environment which is relaxed, and this can be done through a number of things that we have already studied, and one of them is by music. Okay, teacher has to be the authority. This is one of the theoretical perspective. Psychological barriers are removed. Everything in the class setup and everything in the teaching process works towards this. And in the text that is used in the classroom, it's the language and it's the native, it's the target language and the native language that are given importance. Okay. Now, what I would like you to do is, let me change your screen. We are doing a small activity today. Just wait. Now, since we are done with this portion, Okay, here it is. Okay, so here we are. I'm sharing the screen. Okay, now we have discussed this enough. Okay, what are some of the ways that direct positive suggestions were presented in the lesson and indirect positive suggestions? I hope you know this. How are arts integrated into the lesson we observe? Art in the form of music, okay, then singing and then dancing, all of that consists of art that is integrated in the, integrated means, what do you mean by integrated? What do you mean by integrated? How are the arts integrated, involved, और integration का क्या मतलब होता है? Displays, put together, make a part of, ठीक है, Mazib is right, put together, make a part of, add, mix. How are the art integrated into the lesson we observed? Okay, you just think of this question and I'll get back to you in a while, okay? Okay, so here we are. Let me admit some of your class fellows and read your chat section also. Yes, this is the question, how art is integrated, right? How art is integrated in language learning is how it is put together in the classrooms, right? How art is made a part of teaching process. Yes, Faryal is right. I have already told you that, you know, you saw paintings on the walls. Okay, you saw pictures of the target language country on the walls. That is also part of art. And then most importantly, music was used in the teaching process. So this is in a number of ways art was used. Okay, it wasn't just music, but it was the decoration that you saw on the walls also. Those were pictures, those were sceneries, those were paintings of the United States of America. Okay, right. Anila, me this quite close. Okay, so what are some of the ways that direct positive suggestions were presented in the lessons and indirect positive suggestions. So you can work on this also as your homework. But what I would really like you to do right now is, can you just make a list of not many grammatical points, just 3 grammatical points about the target language that you would want to display on posters to encourage beginner students to for peripheral learning. So imagine yourself as a teacher in a class where you have to practice or you have to teach through Suggestopedia. So what would you use for peripheral learning? Okay, because language for communicative purposes is taught to them, but through the peripheral learning, the teacher teaches them grammatical things, okay, grammatical items, grammatical points. So what would you like your students to learn through this peripheral learning? What would you suggest to be on the walls of your classroom? But this should be linked with what you are teaching them directly. Okay, so whatever you're teaching them directly should be complemented with peripheral learning. Okay, now think about those also. We are going to discuss this. Just keep on thinking, and you can put this on the chat, what you would be um, teaching them directly, and how would be complementing it with the peripheral learning. What would you like to be on the walls of your classroom? One thing. The third question that you would be doing here, and then you might do it later on, but for reflecting over the Suggestopedia. See, most teachers, and this happens to be the common problem, that they do not have control over the classrooms in which they teach, right? So this does not, and this should not discourage the teacher not to practice Suggestopedia, right? So as a teacher, what would you do to reduce the barriers your students bring with them, and can you think of the ways that you might do this? Okay, I want you to reflect on these, and right now I would like you to um, tell me this. Okay, 3 grammatical points that you would like to have as peripheral learning, and what would you be teaching directly that would go with your peripheral learning quickly. In like 5 minutes, I would like you to answer this in the chat section. Now, what you're supposed to do right now, you are teaching a class through Suggestopedia. Okay, you're teaching English as a second language through Suggestopedia. You have to do 2 things here. Select your direct learning material, what you are teaching them directly, and then tell me just 3 grammatical points that you would like to be there on the walls for peripheral learning. People whose idea is clear about direct learning and peripheral learning would be able to do this. Otherwise, if you do not have any idea of peripheral learning, then it would be difficult. If you have missed the previous lectures on Suggestopedia, then it would be difficult for you. Now, I have explained it to you and Mazeb has explained it to you. Now raise your hands. How many of you have understood what you're supposed to do now in the class as an activity? Okay, Anila, Nazia, Mazeb, or inke alawa? Do we have any new hands now that I've explained it twice and thrice? Okay, good. Zarmina, Rouj, Aziza has finally got it. Faryal got that. Okay. Okay. Right. Faryal has given you quite a detailed answer. Okay. Anila, you are attempting a question that we would that you can attempt as a homework also, but right now we are doing this part. If my screen is shared and my pointer can tell you we are doing this. Okay. Right. Now, Great. Those who have understood, those who have done this on in the chat, I really appreciate. Now, I'm giving you another example of this. Now, if you are, you know, telling them about a person, you have selected a text. For instance, you have selected any personality, any celebrity. Let's take the example of Qaid-e-Azam maybe, right? Now, you have taken a person to be described through your direct teaching, okay? A passage about Qaid-e-Azam or a passage about anyone. Now, when you are describing a person, you will be making use of adjectives, right? So, your direct teaching would be a passage about a person, and your peripheral teaching may consist of adjectives and their kinds and the use of those adjectives. Okay. Okay, there are 3 points to your one direct learning of direct teaching of the passage about a person. And in peripheral learning, you can teach them, or you can display for them the adjectives. Okay, got it? Other than that, if you are teaching them anything that is descriptive, so you will make use of adverbs, adjectives, and nouns, of course, for the description. So in peripheral learning, you can teach them, or you can display for them these grammatical items, right? I hope this is clear to you. So your direct teaching should complement your peripheral teaching. It is not that something else, something irrelevant is displayed on your walls and you're teaching something else. Okay, so it has to be related, and that is the reason we read that the decoration of the class keeps on changing. Okay, as the direct teaching changes, the material of the direct teaching changes, so would the material of the peripheral learning would also change. I hope that is clear to you. And next time we are going to start with the natural approach. And one more thing is that after every method, whatever activities or reflection points are given at the end of your chapters, you must go through them. Okay, they might form your examination questions as well, right? So please read it, revise. Your recording would be available to you, but what is more important is the reading. Okay, read and reread this, try to understand, and so try to solve the other questions also. We have just done one, but we have done one orally, one in writing. 2 questions are still remaining. You should be reflecting on them. We'll discuss them, and then in the next class we'll move forward. Okay, have a nice weekend. I'll see you in the next class.